Do you have a struggling learner? Pare down your schedule. That's what we're talking about today, so stick around. Hi, I'm Rebecca with the Parent-Teacher Bridge, where you can find the ideas and resources you need to empower you to be your child's most influential teacher. And today, I'm talking all about how paring down your schedule just for a time can significantly improve your child's learning. So before we begin, please click like and subscribe, and remember along the way to drop a comment, ask a question. I love to hear from you guys. The 3 areas we're looking at are, number 1, paring down your schedule means that you have to say no to some extra activities. Number 2, it also means that you don't have to say no forever. Give yourself a time frame. And number 3, your child's schedule is determined by decisions that you, the parent, makes. So what will you let fall by the wayside? Okay, so let's dig into all of those. Now, is your child struggling in a particular area like reading or math? If your child is enrolled in a school, then you are likely consumed with different assignments, homework, preparing for tests, and so on. And that can crowd the schedule that you have with what little time you have with your child in the afternoons and the evenings. Even if your child is homeschooled and you are with them more, you know that your schedule can fill up very quickly as you seek outside activities for your child to be involved in. Either way, if your child is struggling in a certain way academically, you need to be able to recognize that and prioritize that at least for a season until you see some actual growth in that area. So let's talk about reason number 1. Paring down your schedule means that you will have to say no sometimes. And I know that's difficult for some personalities. But think about this. If you have an activity every single night of the week and your child is in school all day long, what time do you have to help your child catch up or improve in an area in which they are struggling? You're going to cause a lot of frustration and stress upon your child and yourself if you cannot pare down that schedule and carve out some special time to dedicate to the area in which they are struggling. Now, learning to say no can be pretty liberating. It can be freeing to say no. I know that it can be tough sometimes when you first are learning to say no to these extra activities because likely you are seeing other parent friends have their children continue in these activities and you find yourself wishing, oh, I wish we had not said no. But just remember, everybody's child is different and you don't have to say no forever. This is just for a season. Don't underestimate how important rest can be for you and your child. Sometimes you just have to say no. Now remember, number 2, you don't have to say no forever. Give yourself a time frame. It just may mean that you are just saying no to one season of ball or one season of dance. It may mean that you agree upon a time in which you will return to that activity or that schedule. But it's important that you give yourself time to figure out what is the root of this issue, what can we do to solve it, and work really hard on that for a while until you can bring your child up to where you think they need to be. Now remember, it's you, the parent, that decides what your child's schedule is. You're the one that has the ability to say, no, we're just going to take a break for now. It's not forever. We're going to come back. What will you allow to fall by the wayside? Now, there are certain things that are non-negotiables in our household. I want to make sure that my children know how to read. They're confident in reading because if they know how to read and they're confident in their reading, they can learn just about anything through reading. I want to make sure that they love learning, and I want to make sure that they're solid in their foundational math skills. I want to make sure that they're able to coherently write a sentence and write a paragraph to express themselves. These are non-negotiable things. And if your child is struggling in one of those areas, it's very important that you try your best to catch them up for a while and say no to some other outside activities. Now, everyone's child is different. Some people's children struggle with playing ball. Some people's children struggle with reading. Now, if you think about a child who struggles on the ball team, what would you say that that child needs more of? Well, you would say they need more practice. I know that was the case for some of my own children when they played on a ball team. I knew that was the case. They just needed more practice. And so the same is true with many of the children who are struggling in reading. Not only do they need more practice, but you might find that they have something like dyslexia or something going on with their eyes. And they need that problem addressed. They need it addressed in a very specific way. And so give yourself time to research that and to practice by carving out this time in your schedule. If you say yes to every outside activity all the time, knowing that your child is already struggling, maybe academically, maybe even emotionally, if they have some anxiety, then you are the one to blame. You have the power to say, not this month, or we'll come back to it in the spring. Never underestimate just how important that rest can be and time at home. Now, comment below if you have had any of these issues happen in your family. I know for us, we pared down our schedule one time when I was having a particular struggle with one of my children. So my middle child was in kindergarten when we made a large family move, and there were a lot of disruptions. And before I knew it, the kindergarten year was almost over, and he was not where I wanted him to be for reading. And I felt a lot of guilt and a lot of neglect. So I decided that I was going to bump him and his reading up to the top of my priority list just for a while. I knew the other two were okay. He had a sister in preschool. She was really smart and on level for a preschool child. And he had a brother who was already independently reading and able to do some of his own assignments. So I moved this middle child up, this kindergartner up, and gave him lots and lots of one-on-one time with me and with reading practice. And looking back, it ended up only being about a month and a half. That is not that long. And it was so encouraging to see the growth that he had, to see the confidence and the independence that was gained in that process. So I would go back and I would say, yes, that was worth it. Now, I have tutored for the last several years, and one thing that I can say is any tutoring parent that has made the commitment to come to tutoring one or sometimes twice a week, and they've done their homework and they've done their practice, they've done everything I've recommended for them to do with their child. They've never looked back on that time and said, I wish they hadn't come to tutoring that summer. Instead, it's more like they will send me updates periodically. After the child has spread their wings and moved on from tutoring, they'll send me updates and they'll say, oh, my child made the honor roll this month. Or look, my child is now reading in bed and falling asleep while reading a book. And they're so encouraged. They have prioritized that for a while, and they have no regrets later. So what are you going to commit to doing? What can you do to pare down your schedule and prioritize some of your child's learning goals? Now, whenever I have a current reading student in my tutoring business who is not making as much improvement as quickly as I've typically seen happen, I always ask the parent, now, which days is the child reading aloud to you? And more often than not, I get an answer like, oh, we've been so busy the last 2 weeks. So I ask that question for a very important reason. I want to know that, am I doing what I need to do to help the child improve? If I'm not enough, I want to be able to recommend that child to go to someone else, some other more specialized program. But usually it ends up being, it's just that they were so busy, they didn't pare down their schedule and prioritize that practice that their child needed. And so they have to go back and get refocused. Now remember, there's a reason why elementary school is called elementary school. Elements are foundational. You are building a foundation for the rest of school. If your child is struggling in elementary school and you do not get that addressed, do you think they're going to not struggle in middle school or even high school? Yes, you need to get the problem addressed, and you need to do it sooner than later. Now, what if you had to pare down in your schedule? Did you have to leave it by the wayside for forever, or did you decide to come back to it? What successes and struggles did you have? Leave a comment below. Now remember, you can check out theparentteacherbridge.com. The store has some products that might be particularly helpful for you. There are several reading resources there, as well as 2 different online courses that you can purchase. If you have a struggling reader, I'll walk you through everything that you need to do at home to get your child on level a confident and fluent reader. So be sure to check those out as well. Remember, you can also download my 5 quick tips to immediately help your struggling reader. I'll leave a link for those in the description below. Remember, you are your child's most influential teacher.